Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special stream as we digest the news. And it's big news that Sergio Perez is out at Red Bull and Liam Lawson has been confirmed this morning as Max Verstappen's teammate for Formula One in 2025. I'm delighted to be joined by Lawrence Barretto to go through what is huge news. This is one of the race-winning teams from this season. Lawrence, always contenders in recent times, and Liam Lawson, after 11 starts in Formula One, is promoted to that team.
Alex, hasn't he got the biggest job on his hands? I think stepping into that seat alongside Max Verstappen, four-time world champion. It's super unusual for a top team to wait until this late in a year to decide what their lineup is going to be for next year. Normally it's the smaller teams. They're kind of just seeing who's maybe left or just kind of finalising the deals and trying to fight over drivers. So for Red Bull to have left it this late kind of shows the real challenge I think that they faced this year and not really knowing what to do with Sergio Perez after they gave him that long-term deal right at the start of the year, in the hope, Christian Horner said, of kind of accelerating his growth, hopefully finding some form, finding some podiums, and it just didn't work out. And now Liam Lawson has got the chance of a lifetime.
It really is the chance of a lifetime. Let's start with Checo. Let's start with, I think, a good place that you mentioned there. The contract that was meant to give him the confidence, was meant to give him the security. Christian Horner's been on the record saying that approach didn't work. But are you meant to give contracts as motivational tools? Usually they're guarantees, aren't they?
It's happened a couple of times, I think, in previous years. And actually, generally speaking, when people get new contracts, they tend to tail off a little bit oddly. It hasn't really had the desired effect that I think Christian was hoping for. But you know what? They had a driver who had finished P2 in the Drivers' Championship the previous year, Red Bull's first 1-2 ever. He'd actually started the season pretty strongly, and I think they had 3 1-2s in the first few races. So at that point, Checo was actually going pretty well. It's just that his form completely fell off a cliff thereafter, and I think they hoped that by giving him that new deal, he could find the Checo of 2023. The Checo of the first couple of races of 2024. But he kind of just got into his head a little bit. I remember talking to him maybe halfway through the year, and he was saying the problem is when he makes one mistake, another mistake follows because you're trying so hard, and then you keep trying too hard, and then you overdrive the car, and then the mistakes just keep coming. And when you're in the pressure cooker of the Red Bull family, and at any point the axe that's just hanging above your head could fall on you, even though Checo was convinced throughout the year that he had a contract for 2025 and 2026, and that he believed he had a slightly different Red Bull contract, and that made him a race driver. Most Red Bull contracts, you'll be part of the family and we'll place you wherever. Even as that was all kind of going on, it didn't really help him enough to find that form, to recapture that form. Instead, he kind of just went into this downward spiral. And then you've got the chatter of, Liam Lawson's ready to take over. Well, first it was Daniel Ricciardo, of course, after the Hungarian Grand Prix. We all thought Daniel was going to be in the car when we resumed after the summer break. It wasn't to be. And then Liam's name came up into the fold and Yuki Tsunoda got overlooked. But I think it was just down to the fact that Red Bull felt they gave Checo every single chance this year to prove that he deserved to stay on for that 2025-2026 season, 25 to start with. And he just didn't deliver. What was it? 9 points in the last 8 events. And he was responsible, really, for them not finishing P2 in the Constructors' Championship and obviously not fighting for the title and defending it again.
It's a very interesting one. Was it ultimately the fact that Max Verstappen is just improving year on year and able to get a performance from a car that maybe few other drivers on the grid would be able to do so? Because we're currently looking at footage at Checo playing an amazing part in them being able to win the driver's title in 2021, memorably in Abu Dhabi in 2021, playing the team game for Max Verstappen so he could get back into contention for that Grand Prix. I found it quite tough at the end of this year, Lawrence, seeing a driver with 6 Grand Prix wins, 39 podiums, suddenly finding himself devoid of confidence. And we're currently looking at him winning the Grand Prix in Baku a couple of years ago. But his performance in Baku is what I find the strangest. Suddenly, Checo had the feel, had the balance. It was obviously the track where he was at his most comfortable. He was ahead of Max Verstappen all the way through that Grand Prix until the crash with Sainz at the end of the race. And so there were still glimmers that it was there.
Yeah, I think it is just a confidence game. I think your point proves that it's all about confidence. And I think it's fair to say Checo hasn't lost the ability to drive. He hasn't suddenly become a terrible Grand Prix driver overnight. I think it's just proof that Formula One is more than just pure talent. It's about getting all the factors together. Yeah. And while I think Checo has lots of strengths, like he could be consistent when he felt confident, he could score points heavily when he felt confident, he couldn't get the team kind of around him comfortably to help him get out of the hole that he was in. He couldn't find a way technically to make this car work. And I think when he started to struggle, there weren't enough lights like that Baku moment to kind of give him the confidence to genuinely believe that actually he wasn't in a world of pain and he hadn't lost it. There wasn't enough there. And I think that Baku incident was interesting because he'd done all the hard work. If he'd just finished, even behind Carlos, he didn't even need to go for that position. The confidence he would have got from that result, Alex, I think you're right, beating Max Verstappen faster than him across that weekend, it would have been huge. Yeah. So for him to end up in the wall was tough. And I think that probably was the moment where Red Bull started to really swing the other way and realize, you know what, we need to find a solution here. We need to find a way out.
Well, talking of finding a way out, there were many drivers in contention for this seat, Lawrence. You had Yuki Tsunoda, obviously been with what we consider the junior team. I mean, they love a back and forth about whether it's still a junior team or not between Christian Horner and Helmut Marko and whoever they've decided to place in charge of it at that year. We're a junior team. No, we're not. Anyway, 4 seasons Yuki Tsunoda had with that team. Liam Lawson, obviously a couple of stints, one replacing Daniel Ricciardo, the other one getting the full-time nod, if you like, ahead of Daniel Ricciardo this year. So 11 starts split over 2 seasons, not a lot. Franco Colapinto, who made a big impact, and Isaac Hadjar, who was the runner-up in this year's Formula 2 championship. Lawrence, give us an idea of why they have gone down the Liam Lawson route and why they've placed their confidence in a driver who's made the fewest ever starts in Formula 1 before getting promoted to Red Bull.
Well, we can probably kind of tick off why they didn't go for the others to start with. I think you mentioned Franco Colapinto. Alex, we've talked a lot on Weekend Warm-Up and throughout the F1 TV shows this year about the real peaks that Franco's enjoyed, how he really put himself into the driver market picture with a really strong start to his like super sub performance at Williams. And from what sources tell me, Red Bull got very close. Advanced talks were had about bringing Franco on board. He obviously brings the South American financial back in. I think Carlos Slim, who backs Sergio Perez, has talked about wanting to back Franco at some point as well. Franco at that point looked like one of the hottest young talents. And then unfortunately, he went through a run of races where he had too many crashes. There were just too many of them. I think then there were doubts in Helmut Marko's mind. And I think once Helmut's decided that you're not the one, I don't think you can recover from that. And I think he felt like the consistency just went. So kind of he went out of the picture. I think Isaac Hadjar, as good as he was in F2, and hopefully you can talk to this as well, Alex, because you've followed F2 so closely this year. I think they just didn't really feel like he was ready to step up.
It's a really intriguing one. Hadjar, unbelievably quick. For me, the quickest overall driver of the season. You need more than speed to win the Formula 2 championship. You need racecraft. You need to keep a cool head. You need to respond to setbacks. But in terms of raw speed, I thought he was immense this year. You've got Franco Colapinto made this amazing breakthrough, but they've gone for Liam Lawson. The main question I think that everyone will begin this stream with is why have they picked Liam over Yuki?
It's a really good question, Alex. We could probably do a whole hour just on this question alone, because I think...
Not when you've got a dinner to go to, Lawrence. Not when you've got another appointment. That's why he's so daffily dressed, everyone, by the way. I feel massively underdressed. But to be honest, that's usually the way around that the dynamic works for you, sir.
I feel like you've gone for the relaxed approach, JC, and I've gone for, the colour. You can probably still feel a little bit uncomfortable with the colour. But look, Red Bull had actually 2 very good drivers to pick from in Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda. The whole point that they put Liam in to replace Daniel Ricciardo for this final part of the season was to put him up against Yuki and see how he performed, because I think they felt that Yuki was a good, strong driver and they wanted to use him as a benchmark to Liam. Now, whatever metrics that they use to decide whether or not he is a better driver or better for them going forward, they've decided they saw enough that Liam was the one that they wanted for 2025. That is despite the fact that Yuki out-qualified him on all 6 occasions they went up against each other. That he had a better points total. I think he scored double the number of points than Liam did in that point. Aside from the fact that Yuki had the strongest season he's ever had in Formula One, and actually has now gone on to beat all of the teammates he's come up against, Nick de Vries, Daniel Ricciardo, and now Liam Lawson. He's done all of that, and still Red Bull felt that Liam had this greater potential. Even when Yuki was in the end of season Abu Dhabi test, when he did a day in the Red Bull, the first time, remarkably, that he had the chance to drive that kind of level of machinery. He hadn't done anything more than a few show runs, and he'd done a good job there. I think the difficulty is that Honda are parting ways with Red Bull at the end of next year. They're going over to Aston Martin. He is still a Red Bull junior, but I think for Liam, for Red Bull, Liam is their future. They like the way he was combative on track. I think he went up against at least twice, I remember, with Checo, and they got very close for comfort. Yeah. And he took no prisoners. And I know publicly they criticised him, but I think behind closed doors, they want that approach. They want someone who is hungry. And I think they are prepared to let him come into the team and kind of do a bit of learning, because he is going to have to. Yuki was in his 4th year. Liam, like you said, has only done 11 races. So I think they're going to have to accept that there's going to have to be some learning. But I think they believe, through their metrics and through their analysis, that Liam has got a higher ceiling. They, for whatever reason, believe that Yuki won't hit the heights that they believe Liam will do. And I think it's going to be an interesting kind of turn of events next year, because if Liam doesn't deliver, then they've still got Yuki, so they've still got that option. But obviously they won't be putting Yuki in with a pre-season to get comfortable. But if he does deliver and Yuki delivers, then he's got the chance of going elsewhere on the grid. So I don't think it's the end for Yuki from that side of things. But I think when Red Bull did the analysis, and from what I understand, they decided the day after Abu Dhabi, so before Yuki had even done the test on the Tuesday, they had decided that he was the one. I think once they'd done that, it was kind of, there was no going back, and they believe that Liam is the one to kind of deal with the pressure cooker of A, being in the Red Bull family, and B, going up against the best driver of this generation in Max Verstappen.
Lawrence,
I think we've lost you, Jacques, unless my internet connection has gone a bit ropey. There you are. Got you. Oh, Jacques, no, we've lost you again. And I think we've fully lost you, because we've lost you kind of in complete picture. But while we wait for you to come back, I think it's really interesting from a perspective of Liam versus Yuki. Liam's been really confident this year. I think I've really liked his approach to standing in as a sub for Daniel Ricciardo really late on. I think every time you talk to Liam, you really get the feeling that he's one of the drivers with the greatest level of confidence, despite not having that many Grand Prix results under his belt. I think that's what I've really enjoyed this year, is kind of seeing that confidence coming through, both off track and on track. And he is pushed so hard behind the scenes to really get that shot at Red Bull. So I think when you're maybe comparing him to Yuki, maybe that was one of his greatest strengths in kind of positioning him correctly. And I see, Jacques, you've joined us, so hopefully you've got your internet connection a little bit more stable. But I was just talking about Liam's confidence, really, and that's, I think, important.
I've heard everything you've said, Lawrence. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm just enjoying listening at this stage. I think the confidence is key. Okay, the question I wanted to ask you, and let's see if I can manage it, is: are Red Bull paying the price for making decisions by committee? Because I know Helmut Marko wanted Liam Lawson to never leave that team. When Daniel Ricciardo broke his hand, Helmut Marko was arguing, right, Liam's our future now. It's harsh, but let's back our future prospect. there was a lot of chatter. My understanding is from the paddock that Liam expected to be in the car earlier than he was in 2024. You're now sending him to the senior team with 11 starts. Have they played things correctly with Liam? Are they paying the price for one exec wants one thing, one exec wants another? Because if you take the wider view, they have chopped and changed and not been sure of the direction. And as we take the longer term view into 2026 and beyond, do you expect the chopping and changing to continue? Do you expect that decision by committee?
Well, it's really interesting, isn't it, that Red Bull went through a period, ironically, of not chopping and changing. There was some real stability there. And I think drivers, when they join the team, could have some confidence that they wouldn't be given time. I think Checo, to be fair, is a really good example of that. I think what is difficult at this moment in time at Red Bull is ever since we lost Dietrich Mateschitz, who was the founder, I think this committee that you mentioned does slow everything down. I think the efficiency of Helmut Marko and Christian talking directly to Dietrich has gone. And I think now they do have to decide by committee. And I think you are, by its very nature, going to have delays or lags in the system like we've had. Now, I think it's one thing that Liam thought he was going to be in the car earlier in 2024, and he obviously didn't get in until much later. But I think he should take a ton of confidence from the fact that they are still holding to their word, because Red Bull don't have to. You know, this is Red Bull exists because it's a team game. They don't only want anything. So I think he should take confidence in that. It's not ideal that he only got 6 races at the end of the year before he gets parachuted into the main team. He will look back at how Pierre Gasly and Alex Albon coped when they got parachuted in to the team. As we've seen today, very, very good Grand Prix drivers, but they couldn't fulfill their potential at Red Bull in the manner in which they were given the opportunity. So it's really up to Liam to prove that the confidence that he's talked about, you know, the backing of himself, the backing of Red Bull are given him, is enough to kind of go and show himself well against Max. I think if he goes in thinking he's going to beat Max, I think he's going to struggle, because I think the reality is there's not many drivers on the grid who could go straight into a team and go up against him. But if he's sensible, and I have no reason to think he won't be, he goes into that team. He's already built really good relationships, I think, with staff at Red Bull through his reserve role. You can just see in the way when we're in the paddock, you can just see how well he gets on with everybody and how much everyone respects him. I think if he continues to build on that and really gets a strong winter under his belt and starts off strongly and focuses on himself and getting good results himself, then I think he's got a chance. I think, though, it's imperative that he starts off on the right foot and doesn't get into that spiral that Checo unfortunately had this year, where things just kept going wrong after wrong after wrong after wrong.
It's interesting. He's got a single season contract announced today. So he's got his first full-time season is with Red Bull. And it leaves us, Lawrence, with 1 seat left on the 2025 grid to be confirmed. They're going to be calling themselves Racing Bulls next year, we expect, which is, I'm delighted. RB, V-Carb, I'm glad they've picked a name. Who are they going to pick as their second driver?
I too am glad they picked a name, because calling them RB will finally end this confusion of whether they're Red Bull or RB or wherever they are. Normally in these kind of scenarios in Formula One, you tend to have like a domino effect. So when one driver leaves, they tend to announce his replacement. And then if that's left a hole, you tend to get that hole filled pretty quickly, especially when these two teams are in the same family. Now, they haven't announced who is going to be in that seat, but the favourite is Isaac Hadjar. He is, even though we talked earlier about maybe he wasn't ready to step up to the works team, I think they've been really impressed by the job that he's done in F2 this year. Speaking to the qualities you mentioned about the speed, the raw speed that he's got, I think they do believe that he's got what it takes to step up to Formula One right now. So while they haven't announced it yet, he is the favourite to get that seat. And I think it's good for Red Bull to have someone like that in there who's hungry and will be able to push Yuki to maybe another level, to keep Yuki on his toes as a bare minimum. Because if they do at some point get trigger happy again and need to move things around, they need to be able to have drivers who've got seat time that they can then move around.
Yeah.
And if, for whatever reason, Yuki does step up to the Red Bull team, They want Isaac to be comfortable in that team, that A, if he leads it, or B, he's alongside Liam, or whatever they end up doing. So it makes a lot of sense to do that. And I think it speaks to the state of Formula One at the minute, where we've got so many rookies on the grid next year. We've got Kimi Antonelli, Oliver Behrman's joining. Obviously had Franco this year. Liam's now joining. There are so many young drivers coming on, Jacques doing, that I think it speaks to the strength of the talent coming through the junior formulae. It speaks to the talent coming through, Bortoletto as well. It speaks to the talent coming through about the strength of motor racing at the minute and the quality of the drivers.
I completely agree. This is a great grid for so many different reasons, but you've got the new blood. One name that's not on that grid is a real motivational tool for the rest of the field. No Franco Colapinto on that grid, but he is a well-funded option for anyone who isn't happy with how their driver is performing in 2025. So not only have we got a stacked grid, and by the way, look at what we've got for 2025. We've got Leclerc and Hamilton. We've got Verstappen and Lawson. I don't think many people would have predicted that even halfway through the year. Russell and Antonelli is an extraordinary lineup because Russell knows he's going to have a great chance to lead that team. But can Antonelli make a fast start, create a sort of McLaren-like dynamic? You've got Piastri in his third full season. You expect him to take another step forward. And then as you were marking off, Lawrence, the rookies, and they're all, I imagine, going to be wary that Franco's got the money, got the talent, and if they don't deliver, he's right there to plug and play. So I think not only is the grid stacked, but the reserves are stacked for 2025 as well.
I think that just means that we're in a really good space from a Formula One perspective, because I think hopefully that will mean that will keep everyone on their toes. James Fowles has talked a lot about how much he rates Franco Colapinto. They've got him signed up, I understand it, to a long-term deal. They wanted to keep him in the family when they uncovered this talent and gave him his shot. So I think he would be encouraging, he would be actively encouraging if anyone wants to take him next year. And I think we saw enough from Franco, even though he had a couple of lows towards the end, to suggest that he could be a very good Grand Prix racer. We've also got Valtteri Bottas on the sidelines as well. We've got Zhou Guanyu on the sidelines as well. We heard today that Valtteri is going to be reserved for Mercedes, returning to the team that he won 5 successive Constructors' Championships with. He wants to get back on the grid. He's got unfinished business. Zhou is talking to half the grid about a reserve role, even including Ferrari. He wants to come back onto the grid for 2026. So you're right that they are stacked. And I think so. You've got those kind of waiting in the wings. Then you've got drivers like Yuki Tsunoda who are going to feel burned by missing out on the Red Bull seat, but will want to prove that they've got what it takes, that if the Red Bull arrangement comes to an end at the end of the year, that he is a viable option for another team in 26, whether that's teaming up with Aston Martin and Honda in 26, whether that is picking up on the interest that Haas and Sauber showed in him and taking him on for this year before he signed his new agreement with Red Bull. So I think you've got a lot of very hungry drivers who feel a bit disappointed. You've got some drivers on the sidelines who are itching to get back on. And then you've got these rookies who kind of need to deliver straight away, not just because they want to keep their seat just generally, but we saw this year that if you don't deliver when you get a chance, then you could be out. I think Formula One is a ruthless sport because they want the very best in the sport. So, yeah, really exciting times at the minute.
It really is. And I think it sets it up really nicely. I think we have to just say that for Sergio Perez, if that was his last start in Abu Dhabi, it's a brilliant Formula One career. We're used to Hamilton and Verstappen dominating, but to represent your country so well, to win 6 Grand Prix and be on the podium 39 times, that's an outstanding Formula One career by anyone's metric. Liam Lawson, any driver for me, Lawrence, that makes it from outside Europe to Formula One has committed so early. He was saying that, 8 years old, he started this journey. With his dad who had no motor racing connections. They learnt it together on the job. It's an amazing day for Liam Lawson and his family to be confirmed as a full-time driver in Formula One. And not only that, at Red Bull as well. So, I think we should finish off this live stream by saying congratulations to Sergio Perez on a great Formula One career. And well done to Liam Lawson and the efforts that they've put in. Well done for all the efforts you've put in this year. Lawrence Barretto, speaking to the drivers. I know your interview with Daniel Ricciardo Absolute masterclass there. All the emotions of the moment. You let the man speak and conjure up the words. His final words in Formula One. Two very strange exits, you have to say, for the Red Bull program with Ricciardo and Checo, but great drivers that we wish well for their future. And as we've said, we are really well stacked with an incredible grid and incredible reserve drivers for 2025. So you know what? It's a pretty good season in prospect.
I absolutely can't. Well, you've whetted my appetite for next year alone. We haven't really even finished this year. I mean, I look back on this year and you look at it started off with Günther Steiner leaving Haas, Lewis joining Ferrari, and it has been relentless since there from a news perspective right up till now, and we're on the brink of Christmas Eve. I've had a wicked season, Alex. I've enjoyed working with you guys. You definitely need to rest your voice because you've delivered some absolute crackers. That Monaco commentary was probably standing out for me as one of the greatest ever. But it's been a cracking year. The question really, and we'll answer this next year, is can it get any better in 2025?
I certainly hope so. Lawrence, thank you for your time. You have a very snazzy dinner to go to. So we're hungry for the action in 2025 and you're hungry for your lunch. So we're gonna let you go. We're gonna thank everyone for watching across the entire season and this stream as well. When I'm broadcasting from my kitchen table, this was slightly last minute. But thanks for your company on the stream and throughout the year. And we'll be back for more action in 2025.